Rip, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Next. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is Rippin It, and what we do is once a week we put our heads together and chat about a topic of the day that either our clients are asking about or something we're seeing in the markets that seems really interesting we want to get into. Today's topic is disability insurance. This is something that is not a lot of fun to chat about, but I know you and I both agree that it's probably one of the most important forms of coverage that somebody should consider in terms of insurance. But I want to start with just clarifying. I had so many people over the course of time that seem to be confused about the difference between disability, life, and long-term care. And I know you've got a lot of background in all of those. Maybe in a paragraph, could you just sum up the difference between those three types of policies?
Yeah, sure. So disability really is designed to protect your income in the situation that you're hurt and cannot work. Essentially, there's a duck that's gained a little popularity over the last few years in terms of promoting that, but essentially we want to make sure that your income is protected in the event that your income is cut off. There's a pool of money that is there to replace it. So disability, think that you cannot work and earn an income. Life insurance is really about a premature death scenario, so they're related in terms of that income goes away, but you're not around in the situation, obviously, of a premature death. And long-term care is really on the other side of the curve in terms of making sure that if you have a health event, and there's several different activities of daily living that would qualify, but the idea is that if you're unable to take care of yourself and you need assistance, that your retirement income is protected. So typically that kicks in more later in life, around the age of 80 years old. So that would be just a brief summary between the three types. And disability, obviously the topic of the day, is really important when you're younger and you're accumulating assets in preparation for retirement.
That's a great summary. Zooming in on disability, what are the characteristics of the people who need this the most? But give me maybe the top three situations where people really need to consider disability coverage as part of their insurance.
Yeah, the reality is that it pretty much applies to all people across the board. And if you think about it, if your income was cut off tomorrow and you were unable to generate money to live off of, that has a pretty big impact. I like to use the analogy, it's the engine that really drives your financial success. And so, really from a financial planning 101 standpoint, you're trying to take your income and convert it into assets, right? And you want to grow those assets over time, so that at some point down the road, you can retire, do what you want, make a career change later in life, but you'll have assets to support you. And so, it's just really important to protect that income, especially earlier in life, regardless of your occupation. We can get into the different types of disability and how insurance companies look at that based on occupation. But I really think this is one of those things that applies across the board for all people that are trying to accumulate wealth.
I think that's fair. What comes to mind is a household where there's a single income earner, where we have one income, and if that income goes away, it's catastrophic. So where you have two incomes, there's a little more balance in it. The risk is a bit less if one of the two people can't work. But when I see a single income household and they've still got 10 or 20 years from retirement, that's always a red flag where disability is a huge risk in that kind of case. Another one that I think is important is self-employed people. If you work at a big company, you work down the street at Apple or IBM, you'll have some disability coverage through your company. But for self-employed people, they don't have a policy unless they go out and get their own. So they have zero coverage, and that's a common issue that
Well,
I've come across.
yeah, and to just expand on that latest example, when you're thinking about starting a company, that's something that you need to think about as well. A lot of people really don't even give any thought to the disability side of the equation. But you bring up a good point, because we kind of take it for granted. If you work for a larger, more well-established company, typically there's going to be disability coverage in place. That's employer paid, doesn't come out of your paycheck. You don't think about it. You don't feel any kind of financial impact as long as you're healthy. But if you're going to go start a company, you need to think about not only health insurance, but also disability, that if something happens to you, your family's going to be taken care of.
Disability is something that people don't think about, but the reality is the odds of becoming disabled are a big deal after age, say, 40. Anecdotally, you and I have been doing this long enough where we've started to unfortunately see formerly very healthy people get into their 40s, early 50s, and have a disability event just out of the blue. The causes, I looked at this earlier. Tell me if you've read otherwise, but the top reason that I've read is musculoskeletal, which is essentially ligament issues, chronic pain, some sort of a chronic disorder that causes pain. I've seen folks who had to travel for a living, whether they're consulting and they're flying a lot, and they had so much chronic pain that sitting on an airplane was no longer an option. So that was a disability event. And of course, people who work with their hands a lot, those types of things. What other causes of disability have you come across or read about that are common?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on an important point, which is one of the statistics that I've come across is only 10% of disabilities are caused by injuries, which it's important that we cover the car accidents or the home improvement project on the weekend, type scenario, but that's only 10%. 90% are really illness related, and whether that's musculoskeletal, like you mentioned, it could be digestive, joint and spine disorders. Cancer is a big one, and a lot of people don't think about that, but that also is a disability policy. In fact, a lot of disability policies will pay a multiple. In other words, if you had a monthly benefit amount, it might be 6 or 8 times that monthly benefit amount that it will pay out in the event of cancer, which obviously that is, that's a situation that emotionally and physically can be very draining. And so having a pool of income to come in and help provide for the family is really critical in that type of situation.
I read that at age 42, if you achieve the age 42, you are 4 times more likely to be disabled before you retire than to die before you're retired. And we all agree that term life insurance makes a lot of sense for somebody who's 42, but the odds of becoming disabled are 4 times higher before retirement, and that's why the premiums are high. I think that's what turns a lot of people off about disability insurance, is that the premiums are pretty high compared to a lot of cases term life insurance. What are your thoughts on that? How do they fit into a financial plan when those costs are so high?
Yeah, the costs are high, but you also need to look at it in terms of what's the financial impact to the plan. And again, if that, for a lot of people, if that income's cut off, then their lifestyle is going to get flipped upside down. In being in business for 20 years, I've seen the good and bad and the ugly when it comes to disabilities. Fortunately, I've seen some situations where families were covered by disability, which were really a lifesaver in terms of if that was not in place, the house is going to have to be sold, the kids are going to have to come out of private school, the spouse is going to have to go back to work. You're talking about a really drastic lifestyle change, which could be a big shock. And so it's relative in terms of, the cost is relative to the importance of the plan. And, and even though it's expensive, there are some ways to try to maybe perhaps mitigate that a little bit. One of the ways is if you're a business owner, disability insurance is actually a deductible expense, business expense. And so that's one way to think about writing it through the company and being able to deduct that cost, which will still help to defray it a little bit. Obviously, if you're a business owner, it's still your money at the end of the day, but it helps if there's some tax benefit to that. So that's, again, I would emphasize the importance of the need, and you can always try to work it back into the budget. Maybe you're not getting maximum coverage. A lot of times people can qualify for 55 to 65% of their income being replaced. And even if you're only replacing 40%, that's still better than nothing. So I think at the end of the day, we always want to try to customize the solution to fit our clients' needs, and try to work it back into their budget and the cash flow.
Rip, thanks for your thoughts on a challenging topic. It's not the most exciting topic to discuss on a Friday, but it's a really important one. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.